Rain poured down in sheets across the mining town of Gawa, turning dirt roads into rivers of mud. Ibrahim Traore's convoy had been forced to stop at the outskirts of town when floodwaters made the main road impassable. The president of Burkina Faso stood under an umbrella held by an aide, surveying the damage with a furrowed brow. This wasn't a scheduled stop on his national tour, but sometimes fate has other plans. "We'll need to spend the night here," Traore told his security team. "The villagers weren't expecting us. Keep our presence quiet. No special treatment." His chief of security looked concerned. "Sir, Protocol doesn't matter to people who've lost their homes," Traore cut in, gesturing to the damaged buildings visible through the rain. "We'll stay at the local guest house like regular travelers." As darkness fell over Gawa, something caught Traore's attention. A small figure darted between buildings, clutching something to his chest. In the dim glow of a street lamp, Traore could see it was a boy, no more than 10 years old, soaked to the bone. The child disappeared into an alley. Against his security team's protests, Traore followed. The alley opened to a small courtyard behind a shuttered market. There, huddled beneath a makeshift shelter of corrugated metal and tarps, sat 5 children. The oldest couldn't have been more than 12, the youngest perhaps 5. At their center was the boy Traore had spotted. He was carefully dividing a single loaf of bread into 6 uneven pieces. Traore watched silently as the boy gave the largest pieces to the youngest children before taking the smallest portion for himself. When one of the younger children complained that another had received more, the boy spoke with a quiet authority that seemed beyond his years. "Adama needs more because he's sick," the boy explained. "Remember what Mother taught us. We take care of each other." Something in his voice made Traore freeze. There was a familiar cadence, a tone he recognized from somewhere deep in his memory. Before he could place it, one of the children spotted him. "Someone's watching!" the little girl cried, pointing. The children scrambled to their feet, ready to flee, all except the older boy who stepped forward protectively, pushing the younger ones behind him. "We're not stealing," he declared, chin raised defiantly. "This is our spot. We found it first." Traore stepped forward, hands raised to show he meant no harm. Rain continued to pour around them, dripping from the edges of the shelter. "I'm not here to chase you away," he said gently. "I saw you carrying food and was concerned." The boy's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Are you police or from the mine company?" "Neither," Traore replied. "I'm just a visitor passing through." It wasn't exactly a lie. He preferred to be seen as a man first, president second. The boy seemed to make a decision. He gestured to the small circle. "Then you can share our shelter if you need a place to stay dry." "But we don't have extra food." Traore nodded gratefully and crouched down to fit under the low covering. His security detail would be frantically searching for him by now, but for this moment, that didn't matter. "I'm Ibrahim," he said simply, offering his hand to the boy. "What's your name?" "Moussa," the boy replied, his handshake surprisingly firm. "And these are my brothers and sisters." Traore looked at the children more carefully. They had different features, different builds. "All of them?" "Not by blood," Moussa explained. "But we take care of each other. That makes us family." As the rain drummed on the metal shelter, Moussa explained their situation. 3 months earlier, a collapse at the foreign-owned gold mine had killed 27 workers, including Moussa's father. His mother had died years before from an illness. Many of the children had similar stories. The collapse had left Gawa full of orphans. "The mine owners promised compensation," Moussa said, his young voice hardening. "But then they claimed the miners were working in a restricted area against orders. No proof, but it meant no money for the families." Traore listened intently, rage building within him even as his expression remained calm. "And no one has helped you? The local officials?" Moussa gave a hollow laugh that no child should ever make. "The mayor came for a photo when it happened. The mining company director gave a speech about safety. Then everyone forgot about us." "Not everyone," Traore corrected gently. "You didn't forget each other." Moussa nodded, unconsciously straightening his back. "I'm the oldest now. It's my job to take care of them." Traore noticed a folded piece of paper tucked into Moussa's shirt pocket, worn and creased from constant handling. "What's that?" he asked. Moussa hesitated before carefully extracting the paper. My father's last letter. He wrote it the night before. He didn't finish the sentence. I read it to remember his voice. Would you mind reading it to me? Traore asked quietly. The boy unfolded the paper with reverence. In the dim light, his eyes traced familiar words. My son Moussa, tomorrow I begin work in a new tunnel. The supervisors say it will mean extra pay, which we need for your school fees. I know things have been hard since your mother passed, but I see how you help with your sisters and brothers. A man is not measured by his height or strength, but by how he lifts others when they cannot stand alone. Remember that there is no shame in humble work if it serves those you love. I am proud of you, my son. Your father, Umar. As Moussa folded the letter and returned it to his pocket, Traore noticed the boy's hands trembling slightly, though his eyes remained dry. Your father was a wise man, Traore said after a moment. He was, Moussa agreed. But wisdom didn't protect him when the tunnel supports failed. Traore sat in silence, watching the children huddle closer as a gust of wind drove rain under their shelter. Despite everything, they showed remarkable resilience. The youngest ones had already fallen asleep, using each other as pillows. Where do you normally sleep? Traore asked. Different places. We move around so the authorities don't find us and separate us. There's an abandoned building near the old market, but it floods when it rains like this. Traore made a decision. I have a room at the guest house. It's small, but dry. You could all stay there tonight. Moussa's eyes narrowed again. Why would you help strangers? Because a wise man once told his son that a man is measured by how he lifts others, Traore replied. Something in Moussa's expression shifted. Not quite trust, but a willingness to hope. He woke the younger children, and together they followed Traore through the rain-soaked streets. When they arrived at the guest house, Traore's security team was waiting, faces tight with concern and relief. Their eyes widened at the sight of 6 soaked children trailing behind their president. Sir, his chief of security began, these children need dry clothes, food, and a safe place to sleep, Traore interrupted. Make it happen. Within an hour, the children were clean, fed, and sleeping soundly in the room that had been prepared for the president. Traore sat in the small lobby with his advisors, who had finally been briefed on the situation. The mine collapse was 3 months ago, his Minister of Labor confirmed, checking reports on his tablet. Foreign-owned operation, Canadian company with Chinese investors. They claimed the miners entered a restricted area, but local workers disputed this. The case stalled in regional courts. And the orphaned children? Traore asked. The minister looked uncomfortable. Some were taken in by relatives. Others, the system is overwhelmed, sir. Traore stood and walked to the window, watching the rain. In the morning, I want to visit this mine. No advance notice, and find me everything on the company's safety record, ownership structure, and financial situation. His advisors exchanged glances. This unscheduled detour was quickly becoming something more. Dawn broke with clearing skies. When Moussa woke, he found clean clothes for all the children and a hot breakfast waiting. Traore sat with them as they ate, listening to their stories. Each had lost someone in the mine collapse or to the poverty that followed. Moussa spoke little during breakfast, watching Traore with calculating eyes. Finally, as the younger children played with toys provided by the hotel staff, he approached. You're not just a visitor, Moussa said directly. I recognized one of your men from television. You're the president. Traore didn't deny it. Yes. Does that change things? It might, Moussa replied cautiously. Presidents make promises they don't keep. That's often true, Traore acknowledged. But today, I'm not making promises. I'm asking questions. Would you show me where your father worked? An hour later, Traore's modified itinerary took his convoy to the Gawa gold mine. The unexpected arrival of the presidential motorcade sent the site managers scrambling. The foreign director, a Canadian named Harrington, emerged from his office looking simultaneously polished and panicked. Mr. President, what an unexpected honor, he began. Had we known, then we wouldn't have seen the actual conditions, Traore finished for him. This isn't a photo opportunity, Mr. Harrington. I'm here to inspect the site of the collapse and speak with your safety team. Harrington's smile faltered. Of course, but certain areas remain unsafe. Which is precisely why I need to see them, Traore cut in. His gaze shifted to Moussa, who stood quietly at his side. This boy's father died in your mine. He deserves answers. What followed was no ceremonial tour. With Moussa accompanying him, methodically inspected the operation, asking pointed questions about safety protocols, equipment maintenance records, and worker training. His background as a military officer made him particularly attentive to details others might miss. When they reached the sealed entrance to the collapsed tunnel, Moussa stopped. His small hand reflexively touched the letter in his pocket. This is where it happened? Traore asked gently. The boy nodded, eyes fixed on the warning signs and barriers. The support beams were old, a voice said from behind them. An older miner had approached, recognition dawning as he saw who was visiting. We reported it 3 times. Each time they told us the replacements were ordered but hadn't arrived yet. Harrington tried to intervene. That's not accurate, sir. Our records clearly show. Your records can be altered, Traore said evenly. The dead cannot speak, but the survivors can. He turned to the older miner. Would you be willing to make a formal statement? The man hesitated, glancing at Harrington, whose face had hardened. You won't face repercussions, Traore assured him. You have my word as president. After a moment, the miner nodded. For Umar and the others. Yes, by midday more miners had come forward. Each account painted a damning picture. Repeated safety warnings ignored, maintenance deferred to meet production quotas, pressure on workers to enter areas they considered unsafe. In the mine's conference room, Traore sat across from Harrington and the company's legal counsel. The atmosphere was tense. These are serious allegations, the lawyer began. But they remain just that, allegations. The official investigation concluded. The investigation will be reopened, Traore stated. Today. On what grounds? Harrington demanded, his composure cracking. In answer, Traore placed a device on the table, a small, digital voice recorder. He pressed play, and the room filled with the halting voice of the company's former safety inspector, recorded earlier that morning at his home. I was instructed to falsify the inspection reports, the voice explained. When I refused, I was terminated. They replaced me with someone who would sign whatever they put in front of him. Harrington's face drained of color. Before the mine executives could respond, Traore continued. Effective immediately, operations at this facility are suspended pending a complete investigation. My office will coordinate with international mining safety experts for an independent assessment. You can't do this, Harrington sputtered. The economic impact... 27 lives, Traore cut in, his voice quiet but carrying a weight that silenced the room. That is the impact I'm concerned with. 27 families destroyed. Children like Moussa left without parents. He stood, signaling the end of the discussion. My labor minister will remain here to oversee the transition. I suggest you cooperate fully. Outside, Moussa waited with the presidential security team. When Traore emerged, the boy looked up at him questioningly. The mine will be closed until it's safe, Traore told him, and the company will provide compensation to all families affected by the collapse. Moussa's expression didn't change. They promised that before. This time, the promise comes from me, Traore replied. And I don't break my word. Something shifted in the boy's expression. Not quite belief, but the first seed of it. That evening, as Traore prepared to continue his journey, he faced a decision. Social services had been contacted about Moussa and the other children, but the options were limited. Overcrowded orphanages, separation of siblings, uncertain futures. He found Moussa sitting alone outside the guest house, watching the younger children play. They're coming to take us, aren't they? The boy asked without looking up. Traore sat beside him. That's what normally happens. We won't stay together. Probably not, Traore acknowledged honestly. Moussa's hands clenched into fists. Then I'll just take them and leave again. We've survived this long. Traore studied the boy's profile. The set jaw, the determined eyes, the too early maturity brought by loss and responsibility. Something about Moussa reminded Traoré of himself at that age, after his own father's death had forced him to grow up too quickly. There might be another option, Traoré said carefully. My sister manages a school in Ouagadougou. It has dormitories and takes children from difficult situations. All of you could go there, together. Moussa looked up sharply. Why would you do that? Traoré considered his answer carefully. Because your father was right. A man is measured by how he lifts others. His words reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What? Why I wanted to lead this country in the first place. Traoré's gaze swept over the mining town, taking in its poverty and potential. Not for power, but to ensure no child has to fend for themselves as you've had to do. 2 weeks later, Traoré stood in his office in Ouagadougou, staring out the window at the city below. His desk was covered with reports, mining regulations from other countries, safety standards, corporate accountability laws. The Gawa mine investigation was revealing systemic problems that extended far beyond a single collapse. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Your 4 o'clock is here, Mr. President," his assistant announced. Traoré turned as Moussa entered, now dressed in a school uniform, standing straighter than before. Behind him came Traoré's sister Aisha, who directed the children's school. "He's settling in well," Aisha reported. "All the children are, but Moussa wanted to thank you personally." Traoré smiled. "How are your brothers and sisters doing?" "They're good," Moussa replied. "Adama's cough is better with the medicine. Fatima and the little ones are in classes now." "And you?" Moussa hesitated. "The teachers say I'm behind in mathematics but ahead in history and literature." "That can be fixed with some extra lessons," Traoré assured him. Moussa nodded, then reached into his pocket and withdrew the folded letter from his father. He held it out to Traoré. "I want you to have this," he said. Traoré looked surprised. "Moussa, this is your most precious possession." "I know," the boy replied, "but I don't need it anymore to remember my father's words. I know them by heart now." He pressed the letter into Traoré's hand. "Maybe it can remind you too, when being president gets difficult." Deeply moved, Traoré accepted the gift. "I'll keep it with me always." After Moussa and Aisha left, Traoré carefully unfolded the weathered paper and read Omar's words again. "A man is not measured by his height or strength, but by how he lifts others when they cannot stand alone." He placed the letter in a small frame and set it on his desk, where it would remind him daily of what truly mattered. 6 months later, Traoré signed into law the Mining Safety and Family Protection Act, legislation that transformed how foreign companies operated in Burkina Faso. The law required substantial safety investments, fair compensation practices, and established a fund for families affected by workplace tragedies. Industry lobbyists had fought the changes fiercely, warning of economic consequences and capital flight. But Traoré had stood firm, bolstered by public support that crossed political divides. The first compensation payments to families of the Gawa mine victims were distributed at a small ceremony. As Traoré watched children receive the support that would secure their futures, he spotted Moussa standing with his siblings. The boy, looking older and stronger after months of proper nutrition and education, met his gaze and gave a small nod of approval. Later, when asked by journalists what had inspired such comprehensive reforms, Traoré glanced at the framed letter on his desk. "Sometimes," he replied, "the wisest words come from those we've lost, carried forward by those too young to have such courage, yet who show it anyway. One child's dignity in the face of abandonment taught me more about leadership than any military academy." The reforms would face challenges and resistance in the years to come. But whenever opposition mounted, Traoré would visit the school where Moussa and the others studied. Watching them grow, heal, and thrive reminded him why the fight mattered. And on his desk, the simple letter from a miner to his son remained, a compass that had redirected not just the life of an orphaned boy, but the path of a president, and perhaps the future of a nation.